General Kreth had fought in 4 wars. He did not use the word afraid easily. He had not used it in professional context in 30 years of command. Fear was a tool, useful, honest, something to be acknowledged, and then set aside in favor of the work. He had no patience for commanders who pretended it didn't exist, and no respect for commanders who let it make their decisions. He used it now. "I want to be very clear," he said, standing at the head of the briefing room with the advance force assembled before him. 40 of his best soldiers, the kind of unit that had taken 3 contested sectors in the last campaign and had not lost a single member. "I am not telling you to be cautious. I am telling you to be afraid. There is a difference, and it matters." The room was very still. The human unit designated Vanguard 7 entered the Kellath Basin 6 hours ago, he continued. Their objective is the communications array on Ridge 4. Our assessment rated that objective as a minimum 3-day operation under optimal conditions. He let that sit. "You are not going to engage Vanguard 7, he said. "You are going to locate them, confirm their position, and withdraw. Nothing else. No contact. No engagement. No communication." His eyes moved across the assembled faces. "These are not soldiers who fight the way we fight. Do not make the mistake of thinking that what you know about combat applies to what they do." The advance force moved out at 0300. Scout leader Dren had the forward position. She had heard speeches like the general's before. Respect your enemy. Don't underestimate. She had filed them under useful context and proceeded with professional competence. She reached the ridge, overlooking the Kellath Basin at 0447. She raised her recon scope. She looked at Ridge 4. She lowered the scope, raised it again. Ridge 4 was supposed to contain an active, heavily defended communications array. What it contained was a campfire, and the smell, carried improbably on the pre-dawn wind, of something cooking. She pressed her comm with the careful, precise movements of someone who needed to report something accurately. "General Kreth," she said, "they're making camp." The comm was silent for 4 seconds. In 30 years of service under General Kreth, Scout leader Dren had never heard 4 seconds of silence from him. He was not a man who paused. He processed and responded quickly, precisely, with the efficiency that had made him the most decorated field commander in the current conclave military structure. 4 seconds. "Describe the camp," he said. Dren raised the scope again, took a breath, reported what she saw with the methodical precision of someone who understood that accuracy mattered more than her opinion of what she was looking at. 6 structures, she said. Lightweight field shelters fully erected. Central fire with what appears to be a cooking apparatus. I count 9 individuals visible. 3 are sleeping. 2 are eating. 1 is performing what looks like routine equipment maintenance. She paused. 1 is reading something. "And the array," the general said. She moved the scope to Ridge 4 summit, where the communications array had stood, active, defended, the operational nerve center of the entire Kellath Basin network. There was now a very neat arrangement of components, separated and organized with the specific precision of someone who had taken something apart carefully rather than destroyed it. Not demolished, disassembled, neutralized, she said, cleanly. "I'm not seeing explosive damage." It looks like she searched for the right word, like someone serviced it. "The components are arranged for transport." "They're taking it," the general said. "Yes, sir." Another silence. Shorter this time. "How long ago?" he asked. She looked at the camp, at the fully erected shelters, at the fire that had clearly been burning for some time, at 3 soldiers deeply asleep in the way people slept when they had been awake for a long stretch and had decided the work was done. "Hours," she said. "They've been in camp for hours." She was about to close the comm when the human sitting nearest to the fire looked up from whatever he was reading, looked directly at her position on the ridge, at exactly where her recon team was concealed in the rocks. He held the eye contact for 2 seconds, then looked back down at his reading material, did not alert the camp, did not reach for a weapon, did not do anything except turn a page. "General," she said carefully, "they know we're here." "They know you're there," the general repeated. "Yes, sir." "And they haven't moved." "No, sir. The individual who spotted us went back to reading. The comm was quiet for a moment that felt longer than it was. What is he reading? The general asked. Dren adjusted the scope. Magnified. Read the cover of the physical document. The human was holding with the relaxed posture of someone in a comfortable chair rather than a forward operating camp in a contested basin. It appears to be, she said, a novel. She heard Subcommander Draven exhale behind her. Maintain position, the general said. Observe only. Do not. Sir, Dren said. What? Someone is approaching our position. The human was not running, not moving with the controlled urgency of a soldier executing a flanking maneuver. He was walking uphill, hands visible, the easy, unhurried pace of someone covering familiar ground on a pleasant morning. He was carrying something. Dren had her weapon up. Her team had weapons up. 9 points of aim on a single human moving through pre-dawn darkness toward a concealed recon position as though he had been invited. He stopped 6 meters from their position, set down a thermal container, stepped back 2 paces, looked directly at Dren, specifically at Dren, not at the team, not at the rocks, with the particular expression of someone who has done a thing and is waiting to see how it lands, then walked back down to the camp. He left something, Dren said into the comm. Don't touch it, said the general immediately. It appears to be, Dren said slowly, a beverage container. There is steam. Silence. He brought you a hot drink, the general said. Yes, sir. The silence this time had a different quality. Heavier. Dren, the general said. Who is commanding that unit? She moved the scope to the camp's central fire, where a figure had emerged from one of the shelters. Tall, lean, moving with the economy of someone for whom efficiency was not a discipline but a habit. The commander's insignia on the jacket were visible at maximum magnification. She read the name tag. Her stomach did something complicated. Sir, she said, it's Voss. For seconds of silence. Get your team off that ridge, the general said. Now. Sir. Off the ridge, Dren. Right now. She was already signaling her team. Pull back. Quiet. Fast. They had made it approximately 4 meters when the rocks around them became occupied. Not explosively. Not dramatically. There was no rushing of positions, no weapons raised, no tactical announcement of encirclement. The humans simply appeared from the terrain, from shadow, from the specific nothing that good soldiers used when they didn't want to be visible and had chosen to stop exercising that option. 7 of them, positioned in a loose arc across the team's withdrawal route, standing easy, weapons on their backs, not in their hands. One of them was eating something from a sealed field pouch. Dren stopped moving. Her team stopped moving. The humans looked at them with the relaxed attentiveness of people who had been there for a while and were mildly interested in what came next. Sir, Dren said into the comm very quietly, withdrawal is complicated. How complicated? 7 individuals. Perimeter position. Not aggressive. She looked at the one eating. One of them is having breakfast. The general said something in his native language that her translation unit flagged as non-standard vocabulary. Don't engage, he said. Don't. General Kreth. The voice came from behind her. She turned. Commander Voss was standing 6 meters away at the ridge crest, hands in her jacket pockets, looking at Dren's team with the pleasant expression of someone who had walked up a hill for a conversation rather than a confrontation. She was younger than Dren expected. Shorter. Nothing about her physical presentation explained the specific tone that had entered the general's voice when Dren read her name tag, except her eyes, which had the particular quality of someone who had made all their calculations well before arriving and found the result satisfactory. He told you not to engage us, Voss said. Not a question. Yes, Dren said carefully. Smart, Voss said. He's a good general. She tilted her head slightly. Tell him I have his array. And tell him I'd like to discuss terms before he does something we'd both regret. She reached into her jacket, produced a second thermal container, held it out to Dren. You didn't take the first one, she said. It's cold now. This one's fresh. General Kreth sat with the relay transmission for 45 seconds. She has the array. She wants to discuss terms. He had heard variations of this before, from capable commanders, from difficult opponents, from the specific category of military professional who understood that the moment after a decisive action was as important as the action itself. He had never heard it delivered via a fresh hot beverage offered to a concealed recon team on a contested ridge. He knew Voss's file, had read it twice when Vanguard 7 was assigned to the adjacent operational zone 3 months ago. The file was thorough, commendations, tactical assessments, engagement records going back 8 years. It described a commander with an unusual completion rate and an operational style that 3 separate supervising officers had documented as difficult to categorize within standard frameworks. What the file didn't capture, what files never captured, was the thing he'd learned from the commander of the Hethren campaign who had faced her unit at the corridor engagement 4 years ago. They don't fight the way you expect, the commander had told him over a post-summit dinner. They don't fight the way anyone expects. And by the time you've adjusted your expectation, they've already moved to the next thing. The next thing, Kreth thought, apparently being breakfast and terms. "I'm coming to the ridge," he told Dren. "Sir, have someone show me where the path is." The human who had brought the second drink, a young soldier with the easy posture of someone doing routine escort work, met him at the base of the ridge and led him up without ceremony. Voss was where Dren had described, ridge crest, hands in pockets, looking at the pre-dawn basin with the comfortable appreciation of someone who had arrived at a view they intended to enjoy. She turned when she heard him. Something moved across her expression, recognition, and something warmer underneath it. "General," she said, "you look well. You disassembled my communications infrastructure before sunrise," he said. "Your infrastructure?" She tilted her head. "That's interesting, because according to the operational registry, it was registered to—" "I know who it was registered to," he said. "Then you know why we took it." She looked at him steadily. "And you know you're not actually angry." He said nothing. "I have something else to show you," she said. "Something we found inside the array. When we opened it," she held out a data chip. "This," she said, "is why your advance force shouldn't have been anywhere near this ridge tonight." The data chip was standard military format, compatible with his command unit. He had it open in 40 seconds. He read the first page of data, then the second. Then he stopped reading and looked at the Kellath Basin below them, at the dark terrain his advance force had moved through 3 hours ago, at the ridgeline approaches they had used, at the specific valley coordinates that 40 of his best soldiers had crossed to reach this position. He thought about what 40 soldiers moving through a valley looked like on a targeting system that had been active and calibrated and waiting. He closed the chip reader. "How long," he said, "has that targeting array been operational?" 72 hours, Voss said, "positioned to cover every approach to ridge for. Whoever placed it knew your advance force composition, your likely movement timeline, and your standard tactical approach patterns." She paused. "They knew because someone told them." "The array was bait," Kreth said. "The array was bait," she confirmed. "We picked up the trap signature 18 hours ago during our own approach. Spent 4 hours neutralizing the targeting system before we touched the array." She watched him steadily. "Your 40 soldiers would have walked into a fully operational ambush with no warning and no cover." Kreth looked at the valley. 40 soldiers. His 40 soldiers who were currently, he checked the relay, waiting at the basin's entry point for his authorization to advance. 40 minutes from walking into a valley that had been, until approximately 3 hours ago, a very precisely arranged killing ground. "The targeting data on that chip," he said carefully. "The access signatures. You know who placed it." "Yes," she said. "How long have you known?" Voss looked at him with the direct, steady gaze of someone who had been carrying information that didn't belong to any comfortable category. "We didn't come to the Kellath Basin for the array, General," she said quietly. He looked at her. "We came," she said, "because 3 weeks ago we intercepted a communication that told us someone in your command structure was going to get you killed." She held his gaze. "The array was the reason we could be here without alerting the wrong people. The pre-dawn wind moved through the ridge." "Who?" he said. She told him. The name landed like a physical thing. He had known this person for 9 years. Kreth stood on the ridge for a long time. The name Voss had given him was not a surprise in the way that betrayals were supposed to be surprises. It was a surprise in the way that confirmed suspicions always were, the specific cold clarity of something you had noticed and not allowed yourself to notice, arriving finally as certainty. 9 years. The evidence is on the chip, Voss said. She wasn't pressing. She had the manner of someone who had delivered a thing and understood that it needed time to be received. Communication logs, access signatures, payment routing through 2 intermediary accounts. Enough for a military tribunal. You could have sent this, he said, 3 weeks ago. A secure transmission. To your command structure, she said, where the leak was. He stopped. There was no clean channel, she said simply. We had to be here. In person. With the evidence in your hand and the trap already neutralized before you knew to look for it. She paused. If we'd warned you too early, whoever set this would have known we were coming and moved to something we couldn't intercept. He understood operational security. He had built careers on it. He understood, with sudden and complete clarity, the elegance of what Vanguard 7 had done. An aggressive mission objective that gave them legitimate presence. A timeline that put them on the ridge before his advance force moved. A neutralization, so clean it left no signature that could alert the leak that the trap had been discovered. And then camp. Because the work was finished. Because 40 soldiers who didn't know they needed saving had been saved. Because the evidence was secured, and the trap was gone, and the morning was coming, and there was simply nothing left to do except rest. They had made camp because they had won completely, and winning completely meant you could sleep. He walked down to the fire, sat beside it. A cup appeared in his hand, produced by the young soldier who had escorted him up the ridge, offered with the easy hospitality of someone for whom this was normal. He drank. The sun came up over the Kellath Basin. The valley below was quiet. 40 soldiers at the entry point received his transmission, hold position, threat neutralized, stand down, and would never know how close the morning had come to being a different kind of morning. Voss sat beside him, said nothing for a while. You warned them not to engage us, she said eventually. Yes, he said. Good advice, she said. I've been giving it for 3 years, he said. Every time your unit appears in my operational zone, he looked at her. I tell them to be afraid. And I'm starting to think that's wrong, he said. Fear implies unpredictability, danger without direction. He looked at the basin. What you are is something else. She waited. Inevitable, he said. She considered this. Not at once. Accepted it the way she accepted most things, without vanity, without performance, as a fact being correctly stated. He filed his report that afternoon. The leak was detained within the hour. The tribunal would take weeks. The array components were logged as recovered intelligence assets. In the operational summary, he wrote what he had learned over 3 years of watching Vanguard 7 appear in contested zones and resolve situations that his own command structure had rated as complex and open-ended. Human military units of this classification do not operate on the standard engagement model. They do not arrive, assess, and respond. They arrive having already assessed and responded, and what observers witness is the aftermath of decisions made before anyone else knew the decisions needed making. When Vanguard 7 makes camp, it is not carelessness. It is completion. The work is done. The threat is gone. The people who needed protecting have been protected. The camp means it is over. The camp has always meant it is over. I warned my forces to be afraid of them. I should have warned them to be grateful. He saved the report. Across the basin, the fire was still burning. Someone in Vanguard 7 was reading again.